R5A, it's a great one, filming in Bell Harbor for commercial use, first reading. Mr. Daney.
This R5A, an ordinance of Bell Harbor Village, Florida, amending Chapter 12 offenses of the Village Code by creating Section 12-10, commercial film and photo activity on publicly owned, managed, or controlled property, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for an effective date. This is the first reading ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was an item that was brought to you during last month's discussion items from Councilman Sklar, who was concerned about what's taking place with the proliferation of this type of activity on our jetty. You had a discussion and instructed us to work on an ordinance. At the time, it was discussed that perhaps an outright ban was achievable. In developing that with our city attorney, our village attorney, and our police department, we have presented you two options, excuse me, two options for you to consider. One is a ban that prevents this activity from occurring with a few exceptions that were being discussed. The other is a more heavily regulated permit approach where you do not ban it, but you limit it to a particular location on the jetty, a limited number of no more than 2 at any given time, requiring licensure and permitting and having insurance and the like. And that is perhaps a way to accomplish it, but not necessarily attract whatever might be the adverse reactions of a total and outright ban. You can proceed with that, and if at some later time we find that that is not enough, then you can come back and revisit it. But it may be a way for you to consider a half step before you go the whole way, and still might achieve what I think the goal of this ordinance is about. They're both here. It is the option A is the outright ban that you instructed last month. If you are interested in option B, then you would just need to vote for that ordinance instead. I think Councilman Sklar, you were the sponsor of that.
Buzzy, go ahead.
Thank you. I actually am in favor of B. I think the people that are actually going to pay for a permit are the guys that are out there doing it right. These are the guys that are getting international recognition. These are the 1 or 2 guys out there that would probably go through the process to get the permit, to get the insurance, and do it the right way. I think it'll keep the amateurs off the jetty, and I think it'll really, at the end of the day, we want to solve a problem of the overcrowding of this on the jetty. And I don't think the banning. And I think if we're going to put a limitation to a couple of people and actually put rules in place that are measurable, then I'm definitely in favor of the second.
I think that's reasonable, Buzzy. I think that's a reasonable approach. The only thing I want to say is the little design on A, you have an exhibit A of where it is exactly. That needs to be subject to a little more evaluation. Let's make sure it's the right place. I'm not saying that is or isn't. I get the idea. Let's find one spot that's out of the way.
And it might actually change with the redesign.
Yeah, once it's redesigned, this might change. What we're
Pretty soon it'll
looking
be
to do
closed for a
here,
couple of years, so.
what we're looking to do here with this location right now is to move it away from the more congested area of where the path and everything feeds to the jetty. That's where the residents are most likely to really interact with the jetty. As you get it closer, it still needs to be on the water, of course, because that's what they're trying to film. And so we were saying push it as far east as was practicable, but still giving a lot of that activity access to the residents, that coming right off of the jogging path.
And I think that's actually where the better people that are out there doing it now, that's sort of where they set up anyway. So I don't think it's.
Anything else from the council before we open it up?
I had a question for Susan. I know that we have a lottery system if there's more than, I guess, 2 applicants. Would there be any way to maybe change that to like kind of like a highest bidder type of situation? Because I mean, if they're making I don't know about hundreds, but tens of thousands of dollars, I mean, maybe we should be making more than, if there was sufficient demand, we should be making more than like just the $500 permit fee.
So that's not what the ordinance in the backup is written to do. It's
Yeah.
something we could look at for second reading, but I think we might face some problems in doing that.
Okay.
So we'll work with your staff and look at the options.
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, instead of, because I think for these channels, like as soon as they stop filming, then, I mean, they lose their subscribers and so I don't think for them an option would be to necessarily just like, okay, wait 6 months for for a new permit to come through,
Mhm.
you know? But there is an economic value, so,
And to be clear, the ordinance enables that structure. The ordinance doesn't actually define that structure. That is more carried out through administrative policy. So we'll look at that with the staff for second reading.
Yeah, I think the people that really run it as a business are gonna be the ones that are gonna be willing to pay and get the insurance and do
yeah,
all
but
the
there's
things.
only, but we're limiting it to 2, I think.
I think there's about 6 or 7 out there. 2 of them, in my opinion, are real businesses, real YouTube channels, real money profit center. I mean, there's a guy out there with his phone on a tripod. I mean, he's not going out and getting insurance and naming us as an additional insured. So I think it might weed itself out, but it's a great idea. If it doesn't, we should sort of have something that could trigger it. Yeah.
Yeah. Worth looking into, I think.
Worth looking into what, charging more, you're saying?
Well, no, doing
Setting it
a
up as
bidding,
an
like bidding
auction
out the
instead
license.
of a lottery system. We'll explore that.
You have to be careful. You can't have, as my understanding, you can't have fees as a way to just make tons of money for the city. There has to be a relation to your costs and stuff. And but the concept is to make sure we have, that, it's to make sure it's safe out there, that it's protected, that it's controlled in some way, as opposed to just knocking them out entirely.
And that they're insured, if God forbid something happens, the city is named as an additional insured.
Jeff?
I am supportive of option 2. I think that option 1 is very draconian, way too draconian, and I appreciate the fact that this was brought up for discussion. And I do think that option 2 is the right way to start.
Okay, let's go to public comment on filming in Bell Harbor for commercial use.
Nika Logan, 64 Camden Drive. I think 2 is too few. I mean, maybe 3. I'm not sure what the space allows or how many people really will meet all the criteria. I mean, if you have 6 people who meet the criteria, then then 2 is too few. So I think,
Right.
once they start the process, that number may have to evolve, but not take over the whole jetty.
Right. Thank you. Welcome back.
Steve Greenberg, 9930 Collins Avenue. I'm just looking for an option C, possibly. You have a lot of people that fish from the jetty. So the increase that Seth is looking for is a good idea. But if you want to keep the riffraff off that jetty, why don't you set up a fee to go on the jetty? And the city can, and the village can make some money that way if it's possible, Susan. And then you weed out a lot of those ones that are doing the fishing, because you're gonna be spending millions of dollars to do a beautiful jetty, and then you're still gonna be fishing from the pier, then you're gonna have to hire extra police. So you might as well set up a $5 fee or a $10 fee to go on the jetty.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Nika, on your comment, I think the way we got to 2, as I understand, it really has to do with an analysis of who's usually out there, who are the regulars, and it's really versus, just sort of when it blossoms to like anyone with a camera coming to try to make a buck on our pier, so on our jetty. But I agree, we're trying this out, and we'll see how it goes, right? And this is really, it's a situation in need for a resolution. Maybe this will give it to us, maybe not. We have to keep our eyes open and work hand in hand with our police department on implementation, which we know isn't easy on these scenarios, but we're gonna give it a shot. Okay, someone wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
What's the motion?
Second it.
Option 2, yeah. Option A.
I know. so it's just for the record.
I'll second the motion for option 2.
Is that clear for the city clerk? Okay, although,
Roll call.
roll call.
This roll call, Councilman Sklar,
Yes.
Councilman Freemark,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sauber,
Yes.
Mayor Groisman,
Yes.
Councilman Album.
Yes.
The ordinance, the motion passes on first reading 5-0.
All right, thank you, and I'd like to thank Susan and White Sirota for their work on this. It's not a cookie cutter ordinance, and a lot of work went into it, and our discussions were detailed and informed, so I appreciate the work on it. Okay, let's go to resolutions. R7A, Security and Landscape Assessment.
Yes, R7A.
Dwight.
Yes, R7A, a resolution of Bal Harbour Village, Florida relating to the provision of security and landscape services, facilities, and programs